Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the latest episode of JKL Media Reviews. We're on our continuing journey of the Haunting of Hill House, part of the Mike Flanagan Flaniverse, as we like to call it. And we're doing episodes 5 and 6, The Bent Neck Lady and The Two Storms. And I have with me, as always, my intrepid hosts. And first, starting off with Jesse. Good morning, sir.
Good morning. How is everything up north?
Not bad. The snow is gone. Spring is in the air, so it's all good. For you, it probably feel like fall or something like that, or winter, but for us, it's the beginning of spring.
Oh, nice.
Karen, how are you today?
I'm good, thank you.
Very good. And we're going to do quick thoughts again, and we'll start with our rookie, as always. Jesse, what did you think of these two episodes?
So I somehow thought that these were the last two episodes. And so then when I realized, wait a minute, no, they're not. That was a little, I don't know why I was under this mistaken impression. Both episodes were excellent in different ways. So I can't wait to break both of them down to talk about it. Just once again, I can see why people love this miniseries.
Okay, Karen.
I hesitate to say mine because it's really gonna talk about how it informed the later episodes for me. But
Mm,
the first of these two episodes, The Bent Neck Lady, I think was brilliant storytelling. And also the cinematics were fantastic. And when I watched Two Storms with my husband, I let him know that they were extended shots with very few cuts, and he was also very impressed by that. I think they did an amazing job with that. Lou, you and I talked about that with Adolescence, and Adolescence takes it to the nth degree where each
right.
episode is one continuous shot. This episode is very close to that because it goes through many different phases, but I'm forever impressed with that episode.
Yeah, I was going to make the same comment. This is like a mini class of what the adolescence series did over 4 episodes, but we have it with the two storms, those extended shots, and you can really feel when there's no edits how you really start getting sucked into what's happening, and almost uncomfortably at sometimes because you feel like you're eavesdropping on what should be a private family conversation. Fantastic. All right, so let's turn to the bent neck lady, and right off the bat, I'm going to ask Jesse, did you figure out before the reveal who the bent neck lady was?
I did not.
Okay.
I did not know that. And once it was revealed, it made a lot of sense. And I I read a article about a review of someone doing the show, and the reviewer said that she was unhappy that they didn't explain yet why the she saw that ghost when she did.
Mm-hmm.
What were the catalysts? And she said her theory after the fact was that when your life ends, superstition is your life flashes before your eyes. And they said, and on TV, they make it like, oh, and you'll see all the happy moments. And her argument is you probably saw the most traumatic moments, whether good or bad. And so she felt like that as she is dying,
Mm-hmm.
Nell is dying, that she's going through her past supernaturally and seeing different moments of when she was afraid, when she was in trauma, which I really liked that explanation. It is one of my favorite kind of reveals. My favorite reveal is when I figured out 1 minute before they reveal it, and I go,
Yep.
yes, I
Yep.
was smart enough to figure it out, but I didn't learn it right
Yep.
away so that I was, yeah, get on. This one was once I was revealed, I went, oh, this makes total sense. Why didn't I see that? But I just loved the reveal. I loved how they portrayed it. And truly, I rewatched The Bent Neck Lady last night and was just as sad.
Probably
Um,
even sadder because you knew it was coming.
yeah, and
Yeah.
actually a little angry.
Mm.
The my I We were telling you beforehand, right, that my sister is coming to visit next weekend, and I've shared this that my mom died in July, And in November, my sister's husband had a heart attack and died unexpectedly. And there was a lot of anger because my sister had to spend a lot of time taking care of my mom in the nursing home. She raised her husband's granddaughter. And so it was okay. They're finally just them. They've taken care of the responsibility of being a good parent and even a second generation of kids. She took care of my mom. It just was time for her and Troy. And then for him to die in November, there's a lot of effing anger.
Yeah.
And Nell's anger and depression made sense to me a lot. It was on
Right.
a very personal level.
Yeah, this episode is Victoria Pedretti's Emmy showcase, really. She goes through quite a lot, I think, Karen. And I think the most, like Jesse was touching on, the anger and whatnot. And I think the thing that bothered me the most was when she was reaching out to all her siblings through the phone calls and none of them answered her back. I don't know what moments were bothering you the most in that episode.
Yeah, that for sure. Losing her husband, especially since he gave her so much comfort and was so supporting of her, that was heartbreaking for me. Seeing her be dismissed by so many people, the psychologist who is listening to her but will never understand what she's gone through, which is a fair point, but this to a larger level because she's gone through so much. Her older siblings disregarding her.
Yeah.
We get to see that fight between Nell and Theo, where Nell is just grasping for any kind of answer about her husband, and Theo refuses to help. And I get it. She doesn't want to feel the feelings that someone had at their moment of death, especially such a traumatic one. But to give your sibling some comfort would override that for me, I think. The fact that her father, who had been absent for quite some time, was the only one that really responded to her. And it was too little too late. What he tells her is, I'll come to you, go to your brother's house, instead of stay where you are. Where are you? I'll come to you. Sending her to her brother's house after her brother had declined her call and then sent a message saying, oh, sorry, I missed your call, whatever. And then, her sister's just, waving her off as well. I find that the treatment that Nell and Luke get in this series is the most tragic part of
For
this
sure.
show. They are completely dismissed in
Mhm.
all cases. Both of them are seen as the screw ups of the family.
Yeah.
And
And they both have drug issues.
yeah, and that's one of the things I was going to mention. You notice that Nell stops taking her pills when her brother goes into rehab, and she slowly goes through this withdrawal at the same time Luke is going through withdrawal.
Yeah.
And I love how they do that synergy thing between the twins. And even when Luke takes advantage of her, that's a scary situation he put her in, buying the heroin for him. She still says, okay, I get it. You want one last hurrah. I'm not in favor of it, but whatever it takes to help you. She has that empathy for him. They get each other. And for him to be unreachable during that time when she is going through so much is, I think, is what caused that kind of slide. And the
Yeah.
fact that he's going off the drugs, which makes her go off the drugs, essentially. And it's just a bad combination of things. And if I were those older siblings, man, you can see that Steven has a huge reaction in
Mhm.
there. I feel, what's her name? The older girl.
Surely.
Shirley, yeah. Shirley separates herself from it. She puts on a wall.
Yeah.
And the situation with Nell and Luke, I'm forever going to be frustrated by it every time I watch this. They just, I don't know. As a younger sibling, I feel that way sometimes. Yeah, I get it, but I also don't get it.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, for sure. I'm at the other end of the spectrum. I'm the oldest, and I was always felt like I had to be responsible for all my brothers and sisters, and sometimes unfairly, I thought. But seeing something like this gives me pause, especially when you see how Stephen is really just unable to process what happened, even though he missed most of it. He's in denial about the whole thing. And from a real life perspective, if this situation was playing out in real life, I think a lot of people would have the same kind of reactions that he's having because people don't believe in ghosts and the supernatural and that. So within the drama, you're frustrated with him, but I can sympathize with him. But and maybe that's because I'm the oldest sibling. I don't know, but I do like you're pointing out how Nell is feeling Luke's withdrawal pains because he felt her death
Yep.
pains in the previous
Yep.
episode. He was rubbing his
Yeah.
neck, he was freezing. And I think also another great call out was Tio refusing to use her powers to give Nell closure on whether or not her husband's presence was there, because she in the previous episode went down to the room where her Nell's body was and touched her, and she freaked out because
Yep.
she just felt nothing. So there's all these ties really well played across all the episodes. And come back again, Jesse, to Nell's drug dependence. She on the surface seems to have it more together than Luke, obviously, but underneath it all, she's just as messed up as he is, if not more. And what happens with her and her husband is just tragic. And like I said, I think Victoria just really played Nell so beautifully. Her joy at her wedding, finally making a connection with somebody, was just, and then to lose her husband like that while she's in her sleep paralysis was just so heartbreaking.
Yeah, it absolutely was. And I'm struck by, I'm the oldest too, and boy, I'm telling a lot more than I probably should on this, so apologize. But we had our own set of issues growing up. My mom had anger issues and could be very difficult.
Mm.
And when I got out of the house, I got the F out of the house. And as an adult, I would apologize to my sister and my brother. Like I wasn't there as much as I should have. And my sister, being the wonderful person she is, said, "You did what you had to do to survive. I'm never going to judge you for what you did." And so I think, and I am putting part of my stuff in this, but
You
I feel
can't,
like
I mean, you can't avoid it,
yeah,
right?
I
That's what
think
good art
each,
does.
yeah, I think each sibling has done what they had to do to survive.
Yeah.
There is no one. Nell is the closest with her puffalas hopes that she seemed to always care about everyone else, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
While the rest of them are all doing what they need to survive.
Yeah.
The oldest writing a book, throwing it all in fiction, denying everything. His whole life is there is no supernatural. Dad is just crazy. Just, I'm going to prove everything I can that dad is crazy. None of this happened. I'm going.
But I'm still going to use it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Shirley is, I was so traumatized by the death of my mother that I have now thrown myself into helping other people deal with their grief and during this funeral home business, even down to hurting the business
Yeah.
financially, because this is my calling.
Yeah.
And then the next daughter, I'm drawing a blank on
Theo.
her. Theo is gift cursed with this feelings and doing what she did to try to save other children because of what her did. And then both Lou and Nell, Stephen and no, yeah, Luke and Nell, yeah, of just being the babies and being traumatic the most, both self-medicating. It is just a fascinating dynamics that he's doing in the terms of a ghost story.
Yeah.
This is a family drama tone and told through this ghost story, but it could be people fighting cancer,
Yeah.
physical or sexual abuse, however it is. And it is just a beautiful yet heartbreaking story. Sorry,
Yeah.
I went off on a little
No,
tangent.
that's fine.
No,
It's even more impressive how he's married this family drama to this source material. Because if you read the source material, it's basically a single person story. So what he's
Yeah.
done here is pretty amazing.
and it's definitely a horror, where
Yeah.
this is, I would classify this as like a horror slash drama play kind of thing,
Hmm.
character study, essentially. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, because when you look at Midnight Mass, right, it is, and I always like to preface this because I went in not knowing anything and it made it that much more. But when it, it belittles the story to say it's a X
Yeah.
Right.
story
Yeah.
because it's so much more than that. It is the family drama. It is this about guilt and living with it and all that. So I'm sure that some of his fans might say, can we just get a purebred, just
Horror.
I want a horror film.
That's
Can you do it? Can you
that's
do
House of
a
Usher.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
is
Yeah.
it
House of yeah.
Yeah.
okay? Then I will
Oh,
have to
there's some
next
family
day.
stuff in that too.
Yeah, but it's yeah.
It's mostly horror. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's
All right.
great though. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. So the last bit I want to cover off in this episode is Nell going into the house, how the house invites her. And also we're seeing just before she goes in how the phone calls that we've seen for all the other siblings and their father, how that was played out in those episodes. And now we see it from her perspective. I thought that was really powerful, and it led to that frustration that I had mentioned earlier. And then you see the house with the front porch light flickering off and on, and like inviting her to come in.
Because that was the rule.
Yeah.
I did not catch that till you just said it.
Oh,
Hmm.
okay.
Wow. Okay.
Gotta come in when the light flashes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So she goes in, and then Jesse, what did you think of how that all played out right up to the going up to the top of the stairs?
So I remember in the West Wing episode after Mrs. Lanningham had died in the car wreck, spoilers,
I
and
think we're okay. It's been a
yeah,
while.
and President Bartlett talking to her, and they made sure a point of doing a shot where he's talking to nothing. This is not a ghost story. This is Martin Sheen's character, President Bartlett. It is in his mind talking to this character. So I like how they set this up very quickly that this is not reality. This is in her head. Now, is it is she imagining this? Is it real in her head? Doesn't matter. As I think I told the story that like a week before my mom died, she called my sister, talked to her and said that my mom said she saw her son, my brother, the one who had died, visited her and stayed for almost an hour. And we said, is it her imagination or did he really come? Doesn't matter. It was real to her.
Yeah.
This is real to Nell. Nell is seeing all her siblings there the way she wishes they would be in real life. She is seeing the love of her life there again. You saw as a little kid, she wanted that necklace. I have a locket like that one day, Mommy. One day you'll have this locket. And it seems sense that would be something you would give her on her wedding day. And to see that necklace is the noose. And to see that she wakes up and realizes, oh my God, I'm in an imaginary. And then whatever, and I don't know yet, and hopefully I'm going to find out, but whatever is this evil spirit, and I'm calling it evil, in that house that pushes her, it is incredibly sad that she doesn't die with the illusion. She dies realizing that, oh my goodness, I've done this. I loved everything about it. I loved the reveal that we saw her doing this. And I said, what's the deal with her dancing with all these imaginary people? And you guys said, here it is. And you see it on her mind. And that song is heartbreaking.
Mhm.
It's so beautiful and so well done. I kept meaning to look it up, but I loved it.
It's a real song.
Yeah, it is. Yes.
Yeah. that scene where she's in the house and you realize you're seeing the other side of it. I love how he does this.
Yeah.
He's done this in many of his projects where earlier you see one side of the story
Yeah.
and then later he reveals what's really going on. He does it here with the phone call. He does it with the dancing,
Yeah.
with how she hung herself. And even it's down to the little details too, because you know that her husband, she's not with her husband anymore, and you keep wondering, why aren't we seeing him? We're seeing Lee, who is
Yeah.
David. Is it David? I'm sorry, the older brother's wife, and they're separated. The scene where we vacillate between the house being as it was in the past and then this derelict building. It's so powerful because we get to see that Nell she's seeing things that are painful and also
Yeah.
getting to see things that bring her joy, seeing her husband, seeing Luke at her wedding, quote unquote, dressed up at her
Yeah.
wedding. That was also a loss that she lived through in the past, that Luke wasn't at her wedding. I just, I loved this episode so much. And even though there's so many things to be angry at, there's a lot of joy that you see with her husband, even right before she kills herself, she
Yeah.
gets some closure. It's just such a great episode. And the reveal, I'm with you, Jesse. When I first watched this, I didn't know that it was going to be Nell until right when it happened. I should have seen it. It looks like her, but
Yeah.
I didn't. And also in this episode, we see the tilting on the side, which is one of his trademarks, right?
Yeah. And there's so much sadness, right? That you're like,
Yeah.
Mhm.
oh my goodness. And they talk about that evil looks beautiful.
Yep. Or else
Temptation,
it wouldn't work.
yeah. And so the idea of the picture of her mom, and then the reveal of, oh my goodness, Nell going, I did not write on the walls. I didn't write on the walls. I did not write on these walls. And
Yep.
then in her scene, she sees her mom doing it.
Yep.
And
Yeah.
it's just, I feel, and that's why I was a little surprised. Man, I feel like they're filling in all the holes about what's
Yep.
going on. This is ending. But the more I think about it, there's still a lot of things
There's a
I've
lot of
not,
stuff.
yeah, there's a lot of
Yeah.
stuff going on. Yeah.
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 I also love the part with the tea set. And then we
Couple
see that
stars. Yeah.
when she grows up, she has the mug on her
Yeah.
nightstand that has stars
Yeah.
on it as well,
Yeah.
which I loved. I
Yeah.
love the synergy in these episodes.
Yeah. I would say that when I was watching this for the first time, this episode was when I said, wow, this is a really good series. And then we got the two storms, and I'm going, oh my God, this is a classic series. Like,
Yeah.
And so
this is
I'm
what made it
watching,
for me, these two
yeah, and
episodes.
I'm sorry. Anything else we want to say about the,
Lady?
yeah, that, no,
Yep, go ahead.
no. Is there any, I was going to ask because I was going to
No.
move on to the
Yeah.
other.
All I want to say about before we move on is the title is very appropriate, The Two Storms.
Yeah.
So,
Literally and figuratively.
so
Mhm.
I'm watching this and I go, wait a minute. I don't think they've had a cut because there was this, and I don't remember the exact moment, but where there was this, it felt unusual. Like
I bet you
normally,
can tell you that moment is when Timothy Hutton comes in as the father and he's talking, and it's the kids. And then when it
Mhm.
goes back to him, then it comes back around, and it's the adults.
Yep.
Yeah.
no, to me it was when and I don't remember exactly,
Oh.
but because it was this way, you wouldn't have followed her at this point or something. You
Up
would
and
have
down
just
the
cut to that. Yeah.
up and down to the casket.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then I went, okay, let me back this up. And I went, okay, yes, this is, they're doing this. And then I stopped because that's how I am. Like, is this shot in one continued scene? Asking Google, and they said not totally, but a lot of it. And so I was like, okay, then, because I kept I didn't want to be distracted by, okay, when are they going to cut? When are they going to cut?
Right.
You know when they cut?
No, I didn't. I
The
didn't
chandelier
just watch it.
falls.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. I loved everything about this.
Yeah.
I love my son always mocks that people bring tired ass casseroles. We don't want your tired ass casseroles. On the other hand, I'm like, people don't know what to do. So they bring
Yeah.
food
It's
because,
love.
yeah, it's their way. And though he does love, one of our best friends
Food is
does a
life.
homemade mac and cheese. And he said, I'll take Denise's mac and cheese anytime. That is not tired. And I, the awkwardness, I love this. They always say she looks sleeping. They never look sleeping. And this awkwardness of you're there the night before, I can only imagine how crazy that would be with that storm going out there. It was a dark and
Mhm.
stormy night. That's
Mhm.
perfectly for the mood. And
And a good
the
horror trope too.
yeah, and the idea of Luke is just afraid. He doesn't want to do that, but he needs to. And then I'll get to the end later, but I loved that when Shirley's on her pedestal complaining, and then her husband has to go, yeah, we took the money too.
Yeah.
What?
Yep.
Yeah, shh,
Yep.
we took the money too.
Yeah.
And she doesn't want to hear his explanation, which is, once again, I felt good. Okay, I didn't have to be Sherlock Holmes to figure out what the money was for. Once she said, you better think of a reason to lie because telling her the real reason is going to be horrible. But I love that. And she doesn't want to hear because he's true. He's saying, this has kept us to help all these people you wanted to do. And yeah, I love the dynamics of the scenes. And I'm going to guess that the father feels like the ghost of the mother is there all the time. That's who he's talking to. That would be my guess. You don't have to tell me yes or no, but he's talking to someone
Yeah.
and they're not catching that. They just think he's mumbling to himself, but he is having a conversation with someone.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, they think he's crazy.
Yeah.
Like he went crazy after their mother died.
Just before you go, Karen, I just want to say that
That's okay.
the episode is called The Two Storms. And what I liked about this episode is usually at family gatherings for some sort of event, whether it's a happy one or a sad one, families usually they separate. The kids grow older and they all go their separate ways. When they all come back to these events, there's a lot of baggage that's being brought to it.
Yes.
And this one, the funeral, the viewing, wow, there's just so much stuff, so much under the surface here that it's just left for you to interpret in your own way and feed on that. It's the best. Some of the best writing is it's not the actual words, but it's what's happening between the lines. And I think this episode is a testament to that kind of writing.
Yeah.
I just wanted to get that out, Karen, before you started.
No, that's fine. You don't have to apologize. So I apologize right now because I have a train going by. We live right next to train tracks.
I couldn't hear it.
Can't hear it.
Okay, just in case.
Your mic is doing a good job of blocking it out.
It honked its horn right as it went by.
Oh, okay.
I'm used to it, but okay, so yeah. One of the things that stood out for me in this episode is when Stephen is comforting Luke and trying to help him and I keep saying closure, but this is what they're all looking for, get closure to go and see. Again, it's a bookmark where earlier in the series, we see them talking about looking at the dead person, that you feel like you need to look at your loved one after they've passed to get that closure. She's at peace. You see that. Stephen taking the lead and trying to help Luke work up the courage, and then he's the one that breaks down. And that's an allegory for how he treats his younger siblings like they're screw ups, and he's the one that is grounded in reality, where I think that what Luke and Nell went through, they're dealing with it as best as they can. And I feel like they're more grounded, even though they have major issues in their life, than Stephen and Shirley. Stephen and Shirley are both incredibly in denial. Stephen especially. I think Shirley does it by helping other people with their trauma so she doesn't have to think about her own. And Stephen does it by just completely shunning it. I think part of the reason he acts that way is because he didn't have anything directly affecting him at Hill House. He was too old for that. And that really struck me when he freaked out and Luke was calm.
Yeah, that was well played.
It was incredibly well played. And the actors are just amazing in this.
What is even better is Stephen sees his mother's ghost.
Yeah. And that's crazy. Where he is shaken by this whole experience. And he thinks that he's gonna take care of all his younger siblings, and really he's the one that can't handle it. You notice he says to Shirley's husband, yeah, go get Luca an iced tea. Let's keep him calm down. And then he just falls apart. And I loved that, to be honest. I loved seeing him shaken. Also, I want to ask Jesse if he noticed things in the background of this episode.
It depends on what you mean. The ending was amazing when she's saying, I was here all along, and you guys couldn't see me.
Yep.
And then we see that was happening to her again. Yep. That as a ghost, she's sitting there waiting for them to notice her. And of course, they're not going to. Yeah, I saw some. Obviously, the ghosts, when they saw them, the feeling. But no, I didn't see as much as like when we did Bly Manor, where you would see ghosts in the background all the time. I didn't see it as much on that.
Okay. There are some in this episode.
Okay.
And it's very impactful where these are put. I don't know if you're going to rewatch it again, but there is a scene where all of the siblings are talking and their dad is there and they're in the room with the casket, and up against the wall by the door, Nell is standing there as the bent neck lady. Okay. And I think that is one that hit me when I saw it. And I'm thinking she's there again. And they're talking about her in a way that she wouldn't appreciate. And there she is eavesdropping on them.
And they can't see her again.
Exactly. Same. It's again that synergy of bringing up things with two sides. And we haven't seen their dad a lot.
No.
And this was an episode, I think, that's easing us back into his relationship with his kids, which is negligent. There's hardly any relationship between him and his kids anymore because of all the trauma they suffered. And in the episode before this as well, we see where he takes them to the hotel. That's in the last episode, right? Bent neck lady? Or is it in this episode where he takes them to the hotel?
I can't remember which one, but yeah, where the kids are all talking about it in the hotel about what happened.
He leaves them in the hotel, and then there's the tapping on the watch. I think it's the Nell episode. I'm not sure. But, that we see a lot of him there as his younger self, but we see him with Timothy Hutton portraying him as the older version in this episode. And yeah, he's mumbling to himself. He is detached, I think. Mm-hmm. And when they push him, they don't want to listen to what he's saying. They push him to tell us what went on. And he says, okay, you want to know what went on? Here. And they're sorry that they asked, I think. And there's a lot of push and pull between them where I feel like Stephen thinks he's protecting his family and he's just completely ineffectual. And I think the father thinks he's protecting the family as well. And I think he would have had a negative impact on them as they grew up because of all the stuff that's going on. There's just so much. And Timothy Hutton is amazing in this episode because if you notice, when it's one uncut shot for a lot of that, there's a lot of choreography that goes into that. And he really did a great job of making it look seamless, where he turns the corner to go to the bathroom and he's all of a sudden back in Hill House and he sees the storm, and then it seamlessly transforming into back in the past where he sees the chandelier fall. That's a pretty obvious cut because the camera angle changes immediately. It goes from this way to this way.
Yep.
And it's easy to see that. Again, I want to recommend Corridor Crew, where they do their reactions to things. They did a reaction to adolescence, and a lot of the time they talk about how things are done when they're not cut. And this would be an interesting thing to see behind the scenes of how they did this, because there are some things that are like, how did they? There's obviously a wall, and they follow them through the archway into the other room. Where is that place? Because when they turn the camera, there's a wall that's seamlessly there. There's a lot of moving pieces. They have to move something into that spot. The part where they go around and the kids are there, and then as they turn around, the adults are there. That was a lot of scrambling. And I think that the allegory also between it being a situation where there's a lot going on behind the scenes, and then it also being there's a lot going on in people's heads behind closed doors, that kind of thing. It's just really brilliant storytelling. I know that you had seen some Flanagan stuff before this, but this was my introduction to Mike Flanagan, and I thought this is a guy I need to look for in the future.
Yeah.
And this episode in particular, I know it sounds pretentious, but I'm really into filmmaking, special effects, that kind of thing, and seeing behind the curtain. And this episode was a master class in that, really, in setting atmosphere, tone, ramping up tension, making it look like you're part of the conversation. Just everything about this episode was amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's on the director's commentary, Flanagan talks extensively about this shot and how they were kind of because once you start doing it this way, if anything goes wrong, you have to do the whole shot over again.
Yep.
So
from the beginning, even if you're like an hour in or something.
Yeah, exactly. So they were running into technical difficulties in that there's some sort of chain they were using to pull the camera was starting to buckle under the load or whatever, and they just barely got the shot done before the chain gave out. So it's a very interesting listen to. So if you ever get a chance to, I think it's well worth it if you're into the technical side of the filmmaking. Yeah. I will say one thing. I did find that there was, like, this is a very, to me, a director showy kind of episode, not just because of the one continuous shot, but he does a lot of 360s around characters. And once or twice I didn't mind it, but I found after the fourth or fifth time, okay, this is getting a little distracting. But that's how they were able to move scenery and characters around with stopping the shot. Some of the other things I really did was the makeup that they did for Nell in her coffin. It, like Tio kept on saying, that she doesn't look like she's sleeping. She looks like she's dead. It was Nell, but it was just off a little bit, that she just didn't quite look like her. So I thought that was
like
really
a Barbie doll version of Nell.
Something like a China doll or something like that. Yeah, I thought that was really well done. There's like, it's called Two Storms, and the storm that's the adult version. Within that storm, there's just so much going on with each of the characters. If you walk through each of the adult siblings, each of them have their own arc going on during that episode. I think maybe Tio probably gets the least amount of attention because hers is pretty locked into her touch, whereas with the other ones, it's much more about, like, Steven's worried about it when he starts arguing with his dad. He's talking about mental illness, and Luke is saying that the house killed Nell, not Nell didn't commit suicide. Shirley's got her whole thing going on about everybody's taking blood money from the book, and that embarrassing moment or shocking moment for her when she finds out her husband's taking it.
Yeah.
We get that weird scene between Tio and Shirley's husband in the basement room where it looks like they're up to some nonsense, but we're not really sure.
I find that I saw that and I went, okay, they want us to think that they may be having an affair, but I don't think that would be out of character. One, because he's not a bridesmaid.
Yeah.
and she's into Bridesmaids.
That's
Yep.
a good thing. The bridesmaid showed up again in the bent neck
Yep.
lady.
Yeah, that was that. Now
I like that.
that was a funny scene where the
Yeah.
two are like, okay, wait, it's gonna happen. Oh, it's gonna happen. Oh, not yet. Oh, it just
There she
did.
is.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is. That was very funny.
Yes. Yes. And then, of course, I just want to reiterate, for me, I thought Timothy Hutton just
Mm.
came across so well as this seemingly lost character that's trying to do his best to protect his kids. And his kids see him as a bumbling idiot. And he sees Nell's ghost. He's the only one that sees her. And then you get the eerie shots of Nell's ghosts throughout the episode, and especially at the very end where I'm right here and nobody can see me, or
Yeah.
nobody sees me. And the two storms, when the electricity comes back on, is when Nell comes back, I guess you could say. In the child version and in the adult version, somebody has put buttons on her eyes, and everybody thinks it's the father since he was the last one there. So yeah, there's just a lot going on. And then Nell's coffin is knocked over, or falls over, I should say. It's just really, just such a really well done episode. It's so complex and multi-layered, and you take this in tandem with the bent neck lady, and it's pretty hard to think of how you could make any of these two episodes better. Really, I just think they're just so expertly woven into the backstories of the previous episodes and then into this one as well. So yeah, I rewatching it, I'm just like, wow, this is just so, this to me is a classic. These two episodes made this series a classic to me. But yeah, Jesse, your thoughts on that?
Yeah, there's so much dynamics there. The idea that Stephen had him and his brother fly first class. You made your dad sit and coach. He wanted to pay for his own ticket.
Yeah.
And the idea they didn't talk much on the plane.
Did you think that maybe they were okay with him not being in first class with them? That they didn't want to talk to him anyway?
Yeah, I think
Stephen definitely was.
Yeah, I think I'm going to believe when he offered, but I think when he said no, okay.
He didn't argue.
Yeah, I would have just, no, here's your ticket.
Right.
I bought the ticket.
You're going to sit with us.
You're going to sit with us. There's just so much dynamics there. And as you watch this, there's questions. Who does put on the buttons? Who does push her off the balcony? You know, what did happen that night? What happened to their mom? There is just, as I started thinking, they've done a good job of answering some questions, but not everything. So yeah, I just enjoyed this journey a lot. I've got no plans this afternoon, so I will watch these two probably right after we get done with this. And yeah, I'm really glad we picked this.
Good.
It's going to be interesting when we're finished how I rate these three miniseries of his, because not that you have to rank things, that's how we think about this. And they've just been I've just really enjoyed all these characters and the journey they're on.
Awesome. Karen.
He's so good at the slow burn.
Yeah.
Where you're anxious to see what happens, but you also get enough information to be satisfied by the end of each episode. And that's a rare thing. A lot of times it'll just be like, okay, end it already and let me see what happened. With this show, you're like, you know what? Continue. I'm in for the long haul. And it's like that with all his shows, to be fair, and movies. I am looking into watching Oculus. I don't know if I will.
It's good.
Is it good?
Hush is good too.
Hush, okay. Oculus, I think, is the one I really want to see.
Hush is a smaller movie. That's also the movie where he met his wife.
His current wife, yeah.
Yeah.
He co-wrote a movie with his previous wife. I don't know if they're still cordial or whatever, but he did.
I didn't even know he was married once before.
Oh yeah. I can't remember the name of the movie, but it was something that was a very small movie.
Right. Oh yeah, it was like something to do with a neighborhood. kind of situation with a
Yeah.
like Insidious or something like that.
Yeah, something like that. It was another horror film.
Yeah.
But he does horror so well. He's not a hack and slash horror writer.
No, he's much more to the psychological relationship.
Yeah, and I love that. I love that,
Yeah.
especially coming from loving Stephen King so much, where he is also that kind of writer. There's some gore, there's definitely a lot of horror things that you're familiar with, but there's also a lot of story elements that keep you very interested in the entire show. You can't get up from this show and then come back and be still know what's going on. You can't. Whereas I feel like in Halloween or whatever, you can get up and come back and it doesn't matter. It's everything is pretty much set in stone. And he is just so good at this. And I can't wait to see other things from him. Again, like I said, I'm going to try and go back and watch some of his other stuff. I am not into like super duper horror that makes me stay up at night. I like this kind where you're satisfied by it, you're shaken up a little bit, but you can go to sleep that night without worrying about it.
Yeah.
Like Aliens, when I first watched Aliens, I was a little kid, and that cat jumping out scared me so much that I had dreams of a cat jumping on me for many days after that. And there's other parts of Aliens that bothers me. Don't get me wrong, but the cat jumping out was really it's something that could happen in real life, whereas the other stuff couldn't. Yeah, his whole thing is real life. There's definitely supernatural stuff, but the stuff that will bother you is the relationships that are real life relationships, that are things that happen every day, and it makes you sad and upset and angry. And then there's some parts that you feel uplifted by. I'm so glad you like this, Jesse, because this was my first Flanagan, as I said earlier. And
Yeah.
because it was more horror than the other ones, I'm glad we saved it till now. But I feel like we're doing you a little bit of a disservice because this was an introduction and it didn't ruin the other miniseries that came after it, but you recognize the similarities and think, okay, yeah, I get it. And now I'm in. You're hooked right away because you're already happy to see some of the things you find familiar. And although I feel like maybe in seeing those other shows, we've worked you up to the more horrific things.
Yeah.
I think so.
Yeah,
For sure.
I don't know if any of that makes sense to you, Lou, but
Yeah, no, I totally agree with you. I think we did the right order for Jesse.
yeah, I think so too. But
It feels
there's
like
a part of me that's maybe you should have watched them in order, just a little part, but
Yeah.
I think it was a good call.
Yeah. I think what's most fascinating for me is also with these two episodes is how families hold on to secrets or they don't talk to each other about things. Like the fact that the kids are still hounding them about finding out what happened that night when their mother died, that just blows me away. And I've got real life corollaries to that I don't want to get into because they're too personal. But
Sure.
There's family issues like that just grow and fester over time. And it really rung true for me that after all this time, the kids still really don't know what happened that night. And I think I don't think it's a spoiler to say that the show is going to explore that. We've been leading up to finding out, and we're going to now get in more to the parents' side of the story because we've pretty well explored most of the children's side. So the next two episodes are entitled Eulogy and Witness Marks, and Timothy Hutton will be featured more in these next couple of episodes. So, nothing against Henry Thomas. Henry Thomas, I think, has done a fantastic job as well, but I just find this more older version of the character more interesting than the younger version, just because of the dynamics of what's happened to the family. So
I think we had to see that younger version though in order to see the differences between before and after.
Absolutely.
And they both do a great job.
Yeah. And there's still some awesome reveals coming, Jesse.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, great.
There's stuff we haven't seen all the good stuff yet. Let's just put it that way.
Good.
All righty. So unfortunately, it's going to be a couple of weeks before we're able to air our thoughts on that. As Jesse mentioned off the top, he'll be away next week. And so we'll be doing this in 2 weeks. So you should have that episode in about 2 weeks as well, probably the Monday or whatever after, because we record on Sunday mornings. Anywho, with that all out of the way, Jesse, you're a busy man. I think you record more podcast hours in a month than most people do in their lifetime. Where are you, and where can people find out what you're doing?
You can certainly find me on social media at Jesse Jackson DFW, Jesse Jackson on Facebook, where I tend to be a little outspoken about my unhappiness with the current administration, and I was not attacked, that's a bad word. I was
Confronted?
chastised for being not very kind yesterday when I posted something about this current administration. Wow. I know.
F around and find out.
Yeah, right? And that was fun. I said that they should call this the revenge tour. That this administration, there is nothing about making America great again. It's just about him getting revenge, and a couple of his supporters disagreed with that
and putting his name on everything.
Yes, but except for that, I also talk a lot about music and Doctor Who and other fun stuff. Set Lusting Bruce continues to roll along. I just reached out to Peter Ames Carlin, who was my 1000th guest. He had done a really good Bruce biography. He has a new book coming out I think it's this fall, where he goes into Born to Run, which is its 50th anniversary. And so he has said, yes, he'd be happy to join me again. I am excited that I'm going to New Jersey in September to be a participant in a Born to Run symposium. So yeah, we're talking the new Doctor Who on Next Stop Everywhere. And we're going through every John Hyatt song and Perfectly Good podcast. And I'd love for you guys to check any of them out and let me know what you're thinking.
Alrighty. Good care.
I feel so old right now. It's the 50th anniversary of Born to Run. Really?
Yes, it is. Yes. Wow.
Holy crap.
Now we're born to limp.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Soon born to crawl.
Yeah. Born to wheel.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm at Oliveria on social media. I am almost never on Facebook. So you can find me there if you want, but I probably won't answer you. I'm on Blue Sky and Twitter. I refuse to call it X. Sorry. I haven't been posting there a lot either. So I apologize to those people, but I do interact with people on our YouTube page every so often. And that is JKL Media Reviews. Our email address is jklmediareviews@gmail.com. And you can find me at my blog, alleystuff.com.
And you'll find me mostly on YouTube at the aforementioned JKL Media Reviews, where you'll find our JKL Media podcast. So we do reviews of one-off series mostly, such as the one that we're doing now. We've already done Midnight Mass and Bly Manor from Mike Flanagan. We've done some diverse things, ranging from music to comic books. And you can check it all out. It's all here on this YouTube channel, as well as my other YouTube channel, Lou's Reviews. You'll find our now completed Babylon 5 journey. We did all 5 seasons plus the recent animated movie. So that's all there for posterity's sake. As well as there, you'll find my interviews with the writers and my Stephen King podcast, which has been pretty dormant, but there's new books coming out this year, a couple of movies. So it's going to be a big year for Stephen King stuff. So I'm looking forward to covering that. And on Twitter, you could find me, and X, or Blue Sky, sorry, you can find me at Lou W. Sitzma. So with that, until next time, take care, and we look forward to getting back together as a group and having you listeners listen to us talk. So take care until then. Bye-bye.
Bye.
And scene.
The proceeding has been a JKL Media production.